Lovely. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along this morning. Just to give you sort of a rough idea, what we thought we'd try and cover is 4 topics, some of which are interconnected and interrelated. So in just a moment, I'm going to hand over to Rebecca Desport. Many of you may not know Rebecca in person. Rebecca's our Chief Operating Officer, obviously one of my key colleagues here at the school. And so Rebecca's going to give us a sort of brief update, a broad update on financial matters. And then same sort of format that we've established with these things over the last sort of few years, a brief update on the financial matters, and then a chance for a bit of Q&A around that area. We've got an update for you on the campus developments, and obviously that then links across into the two-school project as well. It also overlaps back into finance. So I think the best thing is just to see how we go with all these topics in terms of they might sort of overlap a bit. So it's a bit of an update on the campus planning. That then segues quite neatly into the two-school model and where we think we are with that and moving forwards. And then towards the end, we've had some interaction with a group of parents around smartphones and some questions about whether we might be able to extend the restrictions on smartphones as children come through up into 13 to 18. So I've got a bit of an update for you on that one, and then some Q&A if that would be helpful. And then we'll do some AOB, but we do need to do a bit of a hard stop at about sort of 1 hour from now. So I will be keeping a rough on the time. Under that guise, if we could keep the questions perhaps as sort of as focused as you can, then that would be wonderful. We'll just take from there. So it's my very great pleasure to introduce my COO. Anyway, over to Rebecca.
Going the wrong way on the clicker, that's a good start. Excellent, thank you. Morning, everyone. As Jeremy said, I'm Rebecca Desport and I'm the Chief Operating Officer. And we'll get this bit out of the way because this is the financials. So since the last parent meeting, we knew it was coming, and here it is from the 1st of January, VAT on our fees we have to charge it at 20%. Removal of business rates relief, we also knew that was coming. That's also quite a significant cost to the school. And then the third thing, which we didn't know was coming, so it's a lovely surprise for us, is the increased national insurance contributions from April, and that adds about 2.5% to our salary costs. So there's 3 quite significant costs come to the school, some of which we were expecting, some of which we weren't. As I hope you all know, some of the VAT is being absorbed by the school. We obviously have to put 20% on, that's the law now, but we've discounted our fees back a little bit in order to try and share some of that with parents. So the increase to parents is 12%, excluding nursery. If any of you have children in the nursery, we don't have to put the tax onto the nursery fees. So it's non-nursery fees that we're talking about. Obviously, we are now taking a look at what our operating costs are across the school so that we can try and share this burden with parents as best we can. We're doing that with an absolute understanding that what we need to do is preserve everything that we do here for the pupils, everything that the parents really value, which is, of course, why we did the value survey. We're trying to look at our costs and look at it with that lens of really making sure we preserve everything that is great about this school. And then the last point to note is, as within our usual cycle, we'll publish the next fee increase from Easter. So that's all I wanted to say, but obviously you may have hopefully not too challenging questions about that legislation, but I'll try as best I can. Hi. So
just to say, sorry, it's important to just repeat the question briefly for the people at home. So the question was, would we expect an 8% uplift plus an inflationary uplift for the fees for next term?
Thank you, Jeremy. We go through the normal cycle and we look at our costs and we look at, what the school can afford and what the school needs to do. We are continuing to try and protect parents as best we can. So I wouldn't say expect that. No, but obviously it is a challenging time for the school and we are going to need to look at what we might need to do with fees. So one at the back.
Do you know what is the size of the capital project the school's done in the last 10 years? Because obviously there's a windfall benefit from the VAT of that. And is that not something that could then be used to subsidise the school fee increases to parents?
So thanks. That question was about the capital goods scheme. So if the school has undertaken capital projects within the last 10 years, then there is a scheme called the capital goods scheme whereby we can reclaim that VAT over time. Unfortunately, I think in the press that's been played back in quite an optimistic way for schools. So the way it works is if we've spent £10 million on capital in 7 years ago, and obviously you'll all know we've got the Pascal building, the boathouse, there were some large schemes. What we do is we take the VAT on those, let's say it's £2 million, and we have to divide it over the 10 years. So we can reclaim £200,000 a year in each of our VAT claims for the next 3 years, because that was done 7 years ago. So it's not as huge as perhaps it was kind of headlined in the press. It, of course, is significant, but the VAT charge that the school will have to pass back to the Treasury is about £5 million. So the £200,000 that we recover against that, while of course helpful, is sadly not quite the windfall that perhaps it was made out to be. But we have factored that in to our calculations, and will of course continue to do so. Sarah. So obviously sorry, did people catch up with that question? When we move to the two-school structure, will there be one single fee, or will there be a different fee for different ages of the school? These are the kind of decisions that we haven't fully taken yet, but obviously there are good reasons why we charge different fees at different areas of the school. So I don't think it's something we should perhaps expect to change, but of course these are things that are kept under review whenever we review our fees. Any more questions? Oh, this gentleman here, and then.
Just a very quick one. Did we manage to identify anything that you don't need to charge VAT for as part of the composition of the fees? It's like, for example, I noticed that it's also being applied to like music lessons, and I thought, oh, we have to charge on that as well.
So the question is, are there things that we don't have to charge VAT on? And we are having such an exciting time within the finance team here, trying to work out exactly what the rules are. What do we have to charge VAT on? What don't we have to charge VAT on? We're getting quite conflicting advice because this is legislation that's being put in place quite quickly. The general is education on our site for children of compulsory school age attracts VAT. Education for children below compulsory school age and childcare does not attract VAT. So before school care, that's childcare, music lessons is education. So we're working through all of those things, but that's the general rule we're applying. I think there was one over here. Yeah.
Can I just?
Oh, sorry.
Just to tag team on that one a little bit. So we spend a lot of time with our association. So HMC, the Heads Association. We have ISBA, which is the Independent Schools Bursars or COOs Association. And then there's AGBIS, which is the Association of Governing Bodies of Independent Schools. And all of those three groups working together and lobbying government and talking to Treasury and trying to get a better understanding. And you may see a lady called Julie Robinson on the media quite a lot. Julie is the General Secretary of the Independent Schools Council, which is the umbrella. And one of the things that the sector's been trying to do is trying to really engage directly with politicians, with the cabinet ministers. We're finding that really hard. What we are finding is that we did have a meeting. So Julie managed to have a meeting last week with the junior Minister for Education, which was something of a breakthrough. But we've been largely held at sort of arm's length and talking to civil servants. And what we're finding as a sector is that there's a bit of a mixed bag going on. If you talk to the Treasury, which is fundamentally where these things are actually coming from, they're giving some very black and white answers. It is coming. We said it, it's a manifesto commitment, therefore you can't expect it not to be there, and it's got to be in there. We get other messaging that comes through which suggests that there's some real concerns in different government departments. There are some real concerns in the Department for Education about the knock-on effect and what this might mean for different sections of children. So you will have seen quite a bit about SEND, for example, so children with special educational needs and what the provision is looking like for them. So what we're detecting is that there are some concerns. So internally inside the government, different departments, as they always would and should do, sort of fighting their corner for their bit, and then a bit of the Treasury, a bit of a monolithic structure, and very much saying that's just the way it's going to be. They've given themselves a ridiculously short time frame in which to sort of establish how this is actually going to work. And of course, in our own planning, like many schools, we'd gone for April the 1st, as we thought, well, that might be the first time that VAT would come in on. I think everybody was rather hoping for September the 1st to give everybody a much better time. And so were any of you here when we met with Rachel Maskell last term? So just a couple. And I think Rachel was fantastic. She came in, she'd already spent a couple of hours with me at the back end of the summer holidays, and she came in as a constituency MP to say she had some serious concerns thinking about York, about places in state schools, about special educational needs, about mental health care provision, and those sorts of aspects. And one of her concerns likewise was the speed with which this had just been announced that this was going to all happen on January the 1st. What I think we're seeing, and picking up on Rebecca's answer, is an entirely expected outcome. It's really complex. To take your point about music lessons as a subset, then there's a question mark about meals. There's still, and I may be behind the curve on this one, a bit of an unresolved question about some of our overseas trips that we do. Is there a way in which we can sort of pay directly to external company providers, but then is there a differential when it comes through, as well as Rebecca's pointing out the complications as to how you actually retrieve the VAT. The insight that I was given was they honestly don't feel that it's going to be all suited and booted for January the 1st. In terms of clarity, and I think certainly there's teams up and down the country tearing their hair out trying to work out what does this all mean. And some of the messaging has been, well, just make sure you keep all your accounts, and I mean we do anyway because they're brilliant, but make sure you keep all the accounts and all the receipts, because you might find this stuff coming through later. It is an absolute pig's ear for all businesses, full stop, but for schools in particular to be coping and managing with this level of complexity and change. And then understandably you want to know, so what does that mean in hard tax terms, in terms of what that might then push on to the various fee points and so forth there. So I'm sorry that's not sort of a definitive answer, but hopefully something of an insight into just the process of things at the moment. And I think one of the challenges that we're all experiencing is to be asked to do something ready for January the 1st when HMRC don't know exactly what that means as well, and then to be able to interact with you and come back. As I say, the one thing I would just come back to is Rachel and I might disagree on a number of areas, but she has been acting as the only Labour MP who's been willing to stick her head above the parapet and really confidently articulate some of the deep concerns. And so in Rachel, we do actually have a very good constituency MP on this topic.
Thanks, Jeremy. I think there was a question at the back, sorry. Okay.
Is there going to be an increase in class sizes or a reduction in offerings at GCSE or A-level?
So as I said before, we're looking at our costs across the piece, but we're looking at that in terms of there are reasons why all of our parents chose the school. And one of the reasons why we did the value survey is to really understand what it is you truly value as parents. So we have to keep listening to you. The value survey gave us some very, very good insight into how parents feel about the smaller class sizes, about the range of offering, and we must bear those things in mind as we move through and look at our costs. So it's very much heard.
But as a core principle, we don't wish to increase class size, and we don't wish to decrease choice. Because going back to one of these really important points on here is we don't want to see the experience of the pupils and their families to diminish. And there's two real reasons for that. One, I'm sure you can work out what both of them are. One of them is because it's the right thing to do. We are educationists. We've got a very clear view as to what we think the right form of education and the right offering looks like. Likewise, we know that if we start to diminish the offering, then the appeal starts to diminish as well. So you've got those two key drivers in there. It may be helpful just to, and I've said this before in a previous forum, just to talk you through a little bit about how we go about these things, because what we have is we've got various modelling tools that we can use, and we can input into change various factors and fields by pupil change of number, by fee increase going up and down, by capital expenditure spread over different periods of time, or also changed. And those are sorts of things that we use to try and look and say, so what would happen in different scenarios and different modellings. We also have a very rich and thorough contingencies list. And that's to sort of say, okay, so where do we think we could take some cost? And all of you in your businesses, you will know that we all always keep a close eye on cost anyway. And so you start to look at, so are there things that we should be doing in any case, just as a good housekeeping? And then going back to the point about the value survey, you know, the driving idea behind that was to help us understand where are the sensitivities from a parental perspective. So in terms of if we were to decrease some things, you know, trim back on some areas, that wouldn't actually affect the core understanding. So that's it. So where we're at the moment is, as this year goes by, we get a more granular sense in terms of applications to the school. We've just been through the cycle of sixth form applications, and we've made our offers, so we know where we sort of sit with there. We'll start to get acceptances of offers back over the next couple of months as we go through to the new year, the cycle of 11 plus and 13 plus applications and receptive applications. As the year goes by, we then get a better sense as to what our pupil number might be looking like for next September, and then that all gets aligned into the budget setting process, which is next term, and in that you're looking at everything in the round. So it's not so much saying, okay, if we've got a reduction in there, can we use that to offset that? It's very much just looking at what does this mean in terms of the global I&E lines, and then what does that mean in terms of, you know, to come back to the question earlier on, what does that mean in terms of the fee increase for the following year as well? So hopefully that's a useful summary. I think there was a gentleman.
There's a gentleman at the back there.
There was. I thought it was somebody who was waiting to come in over there. Yes. Yourself? Oh, bless you. Thank you. Sorry.
Back here, sorry.
Yeah.
On that point, when is the school going to look to increase the number of seats of GCSE?
Do you say to increase the offer?
The scope of subject available.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a really interesting question. I think this is a question about psychology A level. Thought so. It's a really interesting question, and I'm looking at one of my colleagues who we have various conversations about this from time to time. So it's a really fascinating question because historically today we've not had psychology as a subject, and just for background for parents of younger children who might be interested in this notion, nationally I think it's the third largest entry subject. So we know that children would like to do it. Every single year, we know that some children do say, we'd love to do psychology. A very small number, if they're departing at the end of GCSEs, one of the reasons they'll say for going to York College might be that they offer psychology there. And again, it's a bit of a balance between the two poles there. You've got the educational aspect. You know, if the children would like to do it, it's a really interesting subject. To date, we've always sort of made the case that if you want to do psychology at university level, sort of a more biology chemistry route is the pathway into doing it. It's not necessarily the subject that some people think it might be. And then, of course, you've got the cost element. And that's where it's a really interesting debate, because one of the conversations that we would have is, okay, that's really interesting. If we think that we need to increase or maintain our sixth form pupil number, to what extent would having psychology in the suite of subjects assist with doing that? And at the same time, as soon as you bring in a new subject, you naturally bring in a new additional cost in terms of the staffing resource for it, and the teaching resources. And you're likely not to see another subject disappearing, for example, or a big reduction. You're likely just to see a bit of a trimming off of the subject, you know, class sizes in those elective subjects. And so trying to get that balance of saying, if I had but world and time, you know, would I put psychology in? Yeah, I think it's a great subject. But at the same time, trying to gauge what that might mean in real terms financially, it has to be brought into the fact as well, because we are living in an environment now where we've got to. I mean, we've always had to do this, but ever more so think about what are the financial implications of any decisions that we take. So delightfully non-definitive answer for you, but something around the decision-making process.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so when this policy was first mooted, Labour suggested they wanted to remove the charitable status from independent schools, but VAT, we've lost our business rates. So we have to still abide by our kind of charitable statutes, and some of that is continuing with bursary provision across the school. So yeah, that is a bit of confusion, but we are still a charity. They haven't removed charitable status. The quick answer to that is yes. We have a single partner school in Hainan, and that is returning well about £200,000 a year currently.
Just under £250,000 a year. It's
Yeah.
very straightforward. Forgive me for those of you who've heard this phrase before. We invest time but not treasure, and we extract treasure. Is the very simple version of the overseas school model. We provide the educational experience and ongoing support, and we do quality assurance with them for lots of altruistic and also self reasons as well. And so that model there, we've got actually the pretty much the ideal model that all independent schools would like to have in that setup. So we have a set management fee, which is an annual return back to us, £240,000 a year. That is net of all taxes when it hits our bank account. And then we're also on a kicker up, which is a percentage of gross fee revenue. So when that goes above. And the school opened with sort of 70, 80, 90 children. A year ago, it's sitting on about 270, I think was the last number I heard. So they are growing their numbers very nicely. As I say, when that return on the gross then exceeds the 240, that's where we go to. But the 240 is a base.
Thanks. I'll just go to this lady here, and then I'll come back. Sorry.
You weren't quite sure. Now, also in July, prior to the break of last term, Mr. Walker, you told us that you had a massive spreadsheet, that if this happened, we had that scenario. There was the master spreadsheet. Now, since September, I've asked all the heads in this school what my child's education will look like in September. Young man here, it's currently in year 3. I still have no idea what his education will look like this September. Can you please tell me? Will he have Saturday school? Will he still have thematic or not?
Yeah, this overlaps into one of the other topics I wanted to talk about. So in broad terms, I think it might be worth just reminding ourselves as to why we made the decision not to put the brakes on it, but why we made the decision to rephase it. I think there's a very distinct difference between the two areas there. The reason why we made the decision was not because suddenly a Labour government was coming in and they were going to put VAT on fees. We've been factoring that in for a long time. The biggest issue that we had was the costs of the campus works to do it. So to deliver the 2-school model in the timeframe that we'd wanted to required an awful lot of building works to take place compressed into summer holidays. And when we started to get back the quotes for, so the dining room at 1318, which has been redone, which is a fabulous new facility, that came back in a bit above the original tender quotes from our quantity surveyors, but was manageable. The other one, which is a really important project, is as you go over the bridge down towards Olive, towards 813, there's a building sort of in front of you. It looks very much of its time, and that building desperately needs to have proper recladding done around it, and that's a really important thing just for the building, but also the Rubik's Cube of getting the work done. That project came back in massively, way over what our quantity surveyors had forecast it was going to be. And it was factors such as that, say, this is not the time to just put the blinkers on and say, we're just going to do this, and if it costs, almost double, we're just going to blindly go down this pathway, especially given the tolerance around uncertainties of what VAT is going to be. So just a brief sort of recap as to why we chose to rephase the model. When I'll come on and talk in a little bit about the campus plan and how that's being rephased as well to go forwards. These are not simple things to do. So with regard to the Saturday question in particular, the cleanest way of doing that in terms of a junior school up to the end of year 6 and a senior school from year 7 upwards is to have exactly that, to have the teaching model in place in terms of the staffing model, where you've got the largely whole class teaching with some specialisms up to the end of year 6, and then the different pattern going forwards. It is incredibly complex in a structure where we've got staff who are allocated to 3 sections to how they can do it, to genuinely say with confidence that for next September we will be able to not have Saturday lessons for some children. Now, that's a bit of a two-way traffic as well, because many parents would very much like that, especially for the younger end at 8 to 13, to have not Saturday schools down there. Other parents contact us and say actually they would really miss it and think it's going to go. Structurally and logistically, in terms of writing timetables and deployment of teaching staff, it is very, very complex to do that. So I don't want to set any hairs running that we would be able to do that for September. I think the decision should become clear in the next couple of months. But I'm not going to. Yeah. 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 Okay. I'm just going to put the blinds in. I'm sorry, beg your pardon.
So the next one is an option. Is there an option to announce the fee changes for next year any earlier, so that parents have time to make decisions within their within their notice?
I think that's a very good question. What we usually do is we announce it. We try to announce just before the Easter holiday, and then, as parents will know, we ask for a term's notice. We generally give a little more time after the fees are announced, because we are conscious that sometimes parents have to, unfortunately, take a bit of time to think about it. But let's take that question away and see if we could maybe think about it coming out a little sooner. So if fees were paid in advance, and that would have to have been, we received the cash in advance before the 29th of July, and it was through the official fees in advance scheme that we had. If those fees were received by that date, the current understanding is that we would not charge VAT for those parents against those fees paid in advance. There is a slight murmuring of a challenge around this from the HMRC. We are hopeful that because ours was an officially drawn up scheme, one of the sort of schemes that our legal advisors had given to us, we're hopeful that ours would hold. So yes, very broadly, if you entered into the fees in advance scheme and paid the cash to us before the 29th of July, we will not be charging VAT against those fees. So if fees are paid from outside of the country, they are still chargeable for VAT. So outside and inside the UK, it doesn't matter where we got it from. Fees received by us are chargeable to VAT. Oh, please do, Sarah. So that's an interesting philosophical question, but the answer from the HMRC is yes, it does. It is compulsory to do A-levels. Okay, so obviously one of the things that the school is trying to do, and I'll try and repeat the question, sorry, what is the status of non-fee related income? So obviously we are at our core a school, that is the most important thing that we do, but in order to spread our risk somewhat, in order to try and keep the things that we love and spare the parents from the increase in costs as best we can, one of the things we do is try and generate income away from fees. Jeremy spoke about the international schools. That's a key area for us. Other things we do is we let out our site as best we can. We run our holiday camp provision. We have various different camps and people in residence over the summer holiday. So all of these things are trying to generate us additional income away from fees. To answer the second part of the question, in terms of the bursaries and the Keys for Life campaign, obviously, as I mentioned before, we still have charitable status. So we still have a number of pupils here on bursaries, and one of the ways to fund that is to generate funding for it outside of the school's own internal funding for it. So the Keys for Life campaign is critical to that bursary programme. If we can fund the bursaries from the Keys for Life campaign, then that's more children joining us. That's a rich student body for us. So that's why we do those things. But the Keys for Life campaign is not a cost for the school. It's a separately run campaign. I think that looks like the thumbs up must mean that I have no more questions online. Are there any more questions in the room, or shall we move on? Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Just briefly on the Keys for Life campaign. So we've now reached over £2 million in terms of donations into that one, and it's absolutely tremendous because, as Rebecca says, that's therefore money that we're able to invest into financial support for children that is generated from outside of the school's income. So and it's one of these really challenging areas because it would be very, very difficult to reach a point where we could have enough funds available through fundraising to look after everybody to go forward. So some of the decisions that we've made in terms of setting some parameters around it have been to say that we offer financial support from a need of 50% upwards to 100% on the fees. The process for doing that is a very, very rigorous means-tested process. This talent is important inside there because we want these children to not only be able to take advantage of all the opportunities the school has, but actually to make the school better. So the criteria is looking at what level of financial support might the family need for them to be able to attend the school. Very, very rigorous. And if anybody wants to have a chat with myself and Sarah at the end about that process, deeply rigorous in terms of the financial checking to make sure that we allocate the funds which are required to the right point. And as a consequence of that, we have been able to grow numbers of pupils on bursaries from 33 years ago to 47 at the moment. So a really sort of positive impact. The one caveat in that is it will never be possible to generate the sort of level of funds that would do it for hundreds of children. There's a school called Christ Hospital in Sussex, many of you may have heard of, where they have a property portfolio that's valued somewhere around half a billion. That, of course, generates an enormous amount. Now, even that school, in terms of the revenue it generates annually, has had to take in an increasing number of full fee-paying children. So even that school hasn't been able to do it well. Rugby School is very fortunate. They have the Arnold Foundation, again, largely vested around property investments down in London as well. We as a school, we don't have that level of endowment that we have going through. So it does mean it's incumbent upon us to then do the absolute best we can in terms of that charitable altruistic donations that come in through to that structure. Okay, so the next one I thought we'd just pick up on is, and as I said, all of these things interlink. So just a little update on the campus and campus developments. One of the benefits of deciding to rephase the project is it's enabled us to actually spread out the process by which we do the campus works. And so it's both improving the school incrementally and also moving towards the two-school model at the same time. By being able to do it across a spread, and I'm going to give you a bit of an insight at the moment into what I call the Rubik's Cube of this process, it's also massively reduced the cost to the school because there's increasing numbers of projects where our own teams can be engaged in working on them as well. And taking out the pressure of saying to companies who are tendering, you've got an 8-week window, and the first week's going to be getting on site, the last week's going to be getting off site. You've got 6 weeks to get some pretty significant works done. It makes it much easier. So just an indication of where we've gone to so far. If you haven't had a chance to wander through in an entirely safeguarding checked way into the main bit of senior school to go and look at the new dining room, it's enabled us to increase the footprint of that, which has been much needed for an awfully long time. There is, everything has a slight commerciality to it. We had a dinner in there recently for the first time, fantastic setting and ambience as well. So that's been one portion. There was a need to do anyway, but when we moved to the two-school model, the need for a greater footprint of dining up here. So that's happened. You will all have seen, I'm sure, the fence that's come down from around Burton Cottage. That's the building next door to the library, opposite the chapel. And we've been able to convert that into a really phenomenal, fantastic health, medical and wellbeing centre. Over the last few years, we've really put a massive emphasis on our mental health structures in the school. So a mental health lead, for example, and then our own school counsellors, and triaging down, and then increasing numbers of staff trained in adolescent teen mental health as well. So to be able to visibly, as a school, as you come in and as you start to navigate through, what do we feel about, you know, health and well-being and everything, absolutely front and centre in a really beautiful, attractive space. So that's already giving benefit to hundreds of children across the course of any given spread of weeks. So that's been fantastic. What that has enabled us to do is that the medical centre, for those of you who don't know this, has been in the floor above where my study is, just when you come to school. It's a tremendous location if you've got a broken ankle. You have to hobble all the way up there, go up some stairs and go through. So it's been good to get that out in any case. I'm looking forward to my current neighbours leaving because they're making a lot of noise upstairs. But what will happen as a consequence is that I'll get new neighbours. So it's going to be Sarah and the admissions marketing team, but also the HR department are going to move up into there. For those of you who may or may not know where they are currently, HR is in the ground floor of the pavilion, just over there on the top bank. And Sarah's team are, if you went further on beyond the pavilion towards the Pascal, they're in a section of the school on the left-hand side there. So by turfing them in a delightful way out of those spaces, it means we can start to repurpose those bits. So the alumni department, which is currently also in the bottom of the pavilion, moves across into Sarah's present empire, and the HR teams move up into the space of my office. That means that during the course of next summer, we're going to be able to really completely refurbish the ground floor of the pavilion. That's going to give us, firstly, really needed upgraded facilities for cricket, for changing, but for other sports as well. It's also going to deliver a really quite a large space, not as big as the space we're in here, but a very good, appreciable space with some nice, floor to ceiling windows looking out over the cricket pitch, which is going to be multi-purpose. It's going to be both in terms of hospitality for fixtures and so forth, but it also gives us a meeting space that we're really lacking. We'll be able to accommodate about 30 people inside there for meetings. Now, that's a benefit to us as a school. It's also, looking at our external lettings, a great little conference venue as well. So that's sort of, so you go sort of click with one thing, then that goes through into there. As of this next September, so September coming. So at present, boarding is organised in the school around 5 boarding houses. So we have Wentworth, which is just across to your right, to my left over here, and that's where the junior boarders, so J4, J5 boarders are. And we presently have 4 boarding houses for 13 to 18, 2 boys and 2 girls. So as of September, we're going to consolidate that into 4 boarding houses. And we're going to have 2 houses for children from J4 to 5th form, so that's from year 7 up to year 11, and 2 houses for 6th form. That very much reflects where the boarding market has gone in the entire country. So presently, 50% of all boarders in UK schools are 6th form age boarders, and fewer than 4% of boarders in UK schools are below the age of 12. So you can sort of see, and we've seen that in our own setting as well. So roughly half of our boarders are 6th form boarders. So it means that, for those of you who know what I mean by this, so the Manor and Dron, so that's the red brick, and the other building across the bridge, are going to be the boys' 6th form boarding houses, girls' 6th form boarding houses. It means we can provide for them a more sort of tailor-made bridge across to leaving school and moving on to the life over there. That supports that recruitment feed and retention feed coming into 6th form as well. And then the other 2 houses, so the Rise is the one you see on the left as you go out through the bottom gate, and Linton, which is further down the road opposite the school, will become boarding houses for 11 to 16-year-olds. And so it reflects a couple of things. The school model, but it also reflects the fact that presently our boarding actually already divides into 11 to 18 as a sphere of operations. So that's a development of boarding. It means we can give the 11 to 16-year-olds, by consolidating from 4 houses down into 2, it also means there's a large number of children in each of the year groups in boarding as well, which is better for the children, and in terms of recruitment, in younger age, it supports doing that as well. So, and again, it's moving us towards the 2-school model. That means that Wentworth becomes available for some repurposing and redevelopment as well. In the campus master plan, in the 2-school model, we want to have That's for subjects which are taught at sixth form age only. So that's business, politics, economics, history of art, EPQ, and so forth. And then in due course, when we have the junior school down there, this building here becomes a really fantastic sixth form centre as well. So that enables us over the course of the summer to start to do some of that repurposing work. And then the Gantt chart sort of goes forward as you go forward. So that's where we are. And what it does is it enables us to spread the cost out over time. It's less disruptive, we hope and think, to the children. Oh, sorry, very importantly, before Sarah reminds me to mention this, the cladding project next summer, next summer holidays as well. So that building I was referring to as you go over the bridge. So that's in train to get done during the course of this coming summer holidays, he said, looking at Rebecca. From Easter, thank you very much. So and that's obviously then part of preparing that space. Needs to be done anyway, but preparing it for the junior school setting. So what it enables us to do is it enables us to do that campus development over a more phased period of time, which is better for the financial spend. It's cheaper. It's also better able to see the phasing of costs over time. So it gives us just a little bit more agility as well in terms of as the impact of VAT, whatever that's going to be in totality, as that starts to emerge as well. So it gives us more of a rounded sense. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, on the uniform question, because yeah. No, I'll start with the educational side first, if that's right. So one of the things that we've been working on for a while anyway has just been that sense of flow and transition from year 3 here to J1 at Olives, and then J4 and J5 moving on upwards, and we've been looking to sort of to merge that across. So to go back to the answer I gave earlier, I would not want to set any hairs running about sort of a break of Saturday school coming through. But what we're already working on is trying to. So if I go to J4, J5 briefly, so that's year 7 upwards. At the moment, the various subject departments sort of have a really good sort of cohabitation, overlap, and dialogue and everything else. But what it enables us to do, which we're working on at present, is to really look at those schemes of work to say, right, can we just make sure that we've got the best possible flow, not just of content, but the skills development and acquisition as well, and the experience of the children. And so giving more of a sense of colleagues, very talented colleagues at 8 to 13, most of whom are already qualified to teach to A level and have experience of doing it. And likewise, colleagues. I mean, I'm trained to teach from 11 plus. I'm not saying you want me teaching all of your children 11 plus. I'm good at RS and history and stuff, but I'll leave others to do mathematics. So looking to have the academic education experience to be much more flowing as they go through. And so it's small but important. We've already this year, we spent time last year saying, what are the habits that the J4s are used to in terms of when you come into a classroom or the cycle of prep and how those things work. So to try and make sure that as they make the move from J5 to third form, that we're actually adapting more around what they've been used to. So that's where some of the flow pieces that we're looking at. Just this morning, partially logistically, because we've got visitors on a taster day down at Olives, down at 8 to 13, but we've got two classes of J5 are up having an experience morning in the senior school. We want to do some more of those in January, so when we've got a bit more space for the current J5s. So some measures like that of trying to really harmonise their experience of the classroom, their interaction with the senior school, how the pastoral structures work. So those are the areas that we're working on there. I'm pretty certain I could give you an accurate answer on uniform, but I'm going to play the headmasters have either got granular detail or a bit sketchy. So to avoid the hostage to fortune on that one, I'm going to ask Sarah to just give us an update on uniform.
So on uniform, if your child's moving into J5, the uniform they'll have in J5 is exactly the same as the uniform they'll have in third form and above. So if you want to buy it now, you can buy it because the uniform in J4 is the same as they have in third form and above. So the blazer and so on is exactly the same. So I would say start moving into that as your child's moving into J5. As you'll have seen from the current J4s, I would say the majority of J4s are already in the new uniform, certainly around half of them, if not a little bit more. So the only year groups that we're looking at still having that sort of transitional time in uniform next year is the children who will be moving into J3 and the children who will be moving into fifth form, because they are the 2 points where they're only going to have a year in that style of uniform. So if your child's moving into that year group, if they need a new uniform, then the only one you can buy at the moment is the new one. And of course, second hand will start to become a market, and second-hand shop will start to re-emerge with the new style of uniform in it. However, we will obviously take feedback from parents that, we know you don't want to buy a new uniform just for a year. A little bit easier for the children in J3 because a lot of the uniform actually sequences in. So if you wanted to move into the navy bottom halves and so on, you could be doing that because you'll be using those into the next year. So it's going to be a bit of a funny year for the J3s and the fifth form, but for everyone else, hopefully we will get to that point quite soon where everyone is in the new style of uniform. Okay.
Yeah.
And the hockey pit.
Yeah.
And also, is the move to the two-school structure dependent on having a better car parking?
Sure. So the question is to do with an update on the AstroTurf and the access road and car parking, and is the move to a two-school structure contingent upon that? It's not contingent upon it. It would just massively help us just as we are at present, and therefore by definition would massively help us where we are at present. What we're working on at the moment is to resubmit the application. So for those of you who may not know some of the detail on this one, we've been working with all sorts of bodies. So the Environment Agency around sort of flooding questions and concerns, the Environment Agency on all sorts of things. Bats. I know more about bats than I ever wish to know. So it turns out the bats quite like using rivers as navigation points rather than wide open spaces. But that's another thing. So we're working on sort of a number of concerns, and understandably concerns about traffic flow. And of course that cuts both ways, because if we had an access road and coming in, and as the Australians describe it, as a kiss and drop, as you sort of come in and to deposit your child and depart, that would really help access, the flow of traffic on the avenue. Likewise, North Parade and Queen Anne's Road and so forth. So we'd been working through it all, working with Sport England on sports pitches changes and everything else, and felt that we were in a good shape, that we were working well, and working with the planning officer to make sure that he felt that what we were proposing was going to fit entirely under planning regs, which, as we all know, is one of the most important things. And then about 10 days, a 10-day window time, some very interesting things happened. First of all, we were told that within 10 days it was going to go to the planning committee, and it was going to be a yes, no, pass, fail decision. And at the same time, we suddenly received a large volume of new questions for us to try and satisfy. I make no correlation between those two events, but it did mean that it placed us in a position where we absolutely were not going to, within 10 days, be able to work through the new questions that we've been presented with. So rather than to let it go forwards to an inevitable, we cannot pass this, we chose to withdraw the application. I felt that strategically was a much better position to be in. So what we've been working on is a resubmission. And forgive me for giving you a Radio 4 Today answer, taking into account some of the objections that we got, the new objections, and trying to make sure that we come up with a proposal that we hope would get planning. We've been trying to get planning through for floodlights on the AstroTurf as well, because that would be fantastic for those of you who like your lumens. The light box that the floodlights we're proposing would give drops down to between 3 and 5 lumens within 3 millimeters of the perimeter. What that means for most of us is pretty much there's no light seepage coming out of this thing. We kept on being told that was looking good, and then all of a sudden, oh no, it hasn't been put to the right person. So this is some of the frustrations that we have, which is why you'll currently see that we have temporary floodlights down on the AstroTurf, which I'm sorry to say do have some light seepage, but that's why we'd like to put in the other ones. So we're just working really, really hard within the constraints of how the planning application process works. Well, Rebecca, have you got some insight from Giles on timeframes as to putting it in? For the people at home, that was that's one of those. It's a couple of things. First of all, it's to do with the logistics of trying to make sure that when it goes in, it's as strong as we can possibly make it. And I'm not going to lie, the school is really, really busy. The school's busy at the best of times, at all times. We are super busy at the moment. So there's a certain element of, if you're going to do things well, it doesn't mean you can always just rapid fire shove through things. Yes, is there a question from? Oh yeah, absolutely. It's certainly not a vanity project in terms of just cosmetic. Having said which, it is going to look significantly better. I know that many of you will think, how on earth could you turn it in any other direction? It's not in terms of, just to pick up where that question may go, it's not because we have concerns about the present safety, but at the moment, it's not as the roofing system is not exactly as we'd like it to be. The temperature control is not where we'd like it to be either. So it's actually the building has effectively reaching the end of its natural lifespan as a building, and it needs that cladding for structural purposes and for building purposes. So it's not just the fact that it's not a very pleasant building to look at. So it will be both by the time it's done. I'm guessing that's to do with 13 to 18. If it, we've been hit at 13 to 18 by about 4 or 5 pieces of sort of quite significant short, medium term staff absence, all of which is beyond anybody's control. And it's one of the things that obviously it puts us all under pressure to try and do is to make sure that we've got really adequate, effective cover. If I can say that if anybody's got, and I'm talking to the people at home as well, we have very good dialogue, very open dialogue. I was working through with Mr. Gillies, my deputy academic, a query from a parent on a specific area to do with their child. So I think if anybody's got particular concerns and questions about what that means in terms of covering lessons and making sure that we've got the right teaching in place for the children, please do approach us through the normal channels. No? Okay. Absolute today program answers coming straight away. Sorry, the question is whether we would be in the new parking structure be able to provide parking space for lower sixth and upper sixth. There are no current plans to provide spaces for sixth form pupils to park on site. Yeah, I think we have enough challenge at the moment with enabling, and this is a real tension for everybody in this room, because you wish to be able to drop your children off quickly and effectively and to get your flow coming through. I likewise wish you to be able to do that, and also to then not leave your cars at school and not come back in the school day and park at school and go into town. I merely leave that into the room. That would be much appreciated. Likewise, I and you very much want my colleagues to be able to get to school and to be able to find a place to park quickly so they can get in and get on with their jobs. So I would suggest it's a shared problem for all of us there. Every possible flow. Yeah.
Just to clarify. A lot of the local residents are against the scheme.
Yes,
Maybe a sweet.
they are the remaining. I mean, we can talk about this offline, Charlie. But the remaining streets close by school, most of them are now resident parking only, and the remaining streets which aren't resident parking only, which is causing a tension for us with some of our local residents. So where the sixth form pupils can park, it's causing us a tension there. The streets where they can park are not the streets where residents are going to have concerns about flow. So I'm not saying it wouldn't help, but it's another sort of local sort of engagement problem that we have to work through. Okay, I'm nice to do that with. So we got sort of that was the slide on the campus there, guys. But I think we've covered all of that to go through there. The 2-school model. We've been verbally going through that one, going through there. We've got a bare sort of just under 5 minutes, so I'll just give you a brief update on this. The first one would just be sort of a broad position piece, which is I think we're all of us have concerns about teenagers and young children and smartphones and too much time spent on screens, but also the online harms that can be associated with it as well. So we're all of us exactly on the same page with regard to that one as well. It's one of the reasons why we've been able to bring in to say that they ban on them up to the end of J5, and so we have a process there whereby they come in the morning, because many of them travelling on the train and so forth. So they come in with their phone. We park them into the boxes in the front desk, and then they all come in and out of the same reception point there. So they collect them at the end of the day and go on and go forward. We'd like to be able to sort of extend restrictions on that to children as they get older and come through the school. It is at the moment inextricably linked into the fact that we don't have a one-to-one device. And one of the things that we drew out of the whole lockdown experience was the value of using, and this is For younger children, you would not be running their communication on Teams. You know, you run it through the classroom setting and so forth. The older they get, we find that Teams is a very effective way of communicating with children who are teenage years and older teenage years. So that there is a benefit in terms of communication flow in there as well. We've moved across to doing the co-curricular patterns and sports fix and everything else through an app called Socks as well. And so that's working through there. We don't presently have a one-to-one device system, but we do find those aspects useful. There is minimal, and I think there might be some potential misunderstandings about how much this is. There is a minimal benefit to in the classroom if the teacher wants to use for research or whatever, a very small amount that happens there. Largely speaking, we try and make sure that if we need to use tech with them, we're providing the tech for them to do it. But to the way that it is in terms of the layout of the school, the only times when the children at 13 to 18 are permitted, and this is a school disciplinary matter and structure, to have their phones out is not walking around the school, not in lunchtime, for example. So the only windows of time that we sort of say that it would be okay, and I say that okay, is break times and lunch times. Now lunchtime is an hour and 20 minutes, but that does not mean that they've got an hour and 20 minutes to be sitting around looking at their phones. Lunchtimes are busy times in the senior school. I'll give you a quick example. A quarter of the senior schools sing in the school choir, and that happens on a weekly basis. You've got loads of other music practices and rehearsals, tons of other inter-house competitions. One of the lovely things in the senior school, when we do inter-house debating and inter-house challenge, the university challenge stuff, you'll get not just the 3-4 people in the team, but about 20 people from their house coming along to support them doing that as well. So we don't have an hour and 20 minutes where they're just wafting about, sitting in their house rooms. I'm not going to say that they don't, in some periods of time in there, sit and have a look at them for their phones. And that is a reality. We do not feel it's pragmatic. Never issue an instruction unless you can enforce it. It's quite an important thing with teenagers, as with most people. So at the moment, we don't feel it's practical to say you may never have your mobile phone out. That would imply either a level of CCTV coverage of the school that I don't think would be sort of the right sort of place. There's a school northwest of York that had some trouble with that, or likewise a constant system of patrolling of staff going around. So we're in a sort of, that's the scenario that we're in at the moment. Limited time in the day when they can use them. We would like to start to restrict that use even more. So the one-to-one device project that we're working to at the moment would be to bring in for next September, if we've got the device, and therefore anything to do with Teams. I'm not talking about, you know, the apps that they might want to have, but the apps that we want them to have. So Teams and Socks and things like that, and the ability to, as they go through, never becoming screen intensive. But all of us, you know, we know that in life we've moved from pen and paper to screens and so forth very interchangeably. So to enable us to start to do that educationally more effectively as they go through, but also that then is the moment when we can say there is no reason why you should have your phone with you, because any purpose of it from the school's perspective, we can now control. And as a school I used to work at called Berkhamsted, and I was in touch with them recently, and because one of the logistical problems for us is how do you hand your phone in and take it away? And that's because that's the best way to do it. It's much more complicated in terms of when they come in and where they leave. There's these magnetic bags I've been looking at recently where, you know, if they have to come in on the train, they have their phone, it goes into the magnetic bag and it gets clamped and sealed. And the only way you can open it up is there's points around the school where we decide at what time of the day you can hold the bag against there and it will pop the magnet open and they can retrieve the phone. So I was really pleased to come across that when as a practical solution to how would we then start to say, I'm sorry, you know, you can't have your phone on your inside pocket and say, oh, I just got it there till I get on the train on the way home, sir. You know, it should be in your magnetic bag. So that's where we are. We are at the moment. We've had some dialogue by email with a group of parents who've got some concerns about this one. So we had some questions put forward to us. We've given a response that's come back through. And that's with a group of parents, and we're arranging to sit down with a group of representatives, those parents, in January to have some really good, because, you know, exchange by letter is always good to a certain extent, but you can't be sitting down with a cup of tea and saying, let's just really sort of talk this one through. So that's just very, very briefly. I'm conscious of, now, just to be honest, I have not done that deliberately to then sort of get, you know, I get to control that I say something and then say, and you know, and then we'll leave it there. We are very short of time. May I suggest that anybody who wants to pick up on any smartphone things, by all means, come and have a quick chat. I've got a few minutes now that I can interact there. Beyond that, is there anything In that case, can I just say a massive thank you, first of all, for your engagement, and also it's challenging times, it's uncertain times, and I just want to reiterate on behalf of myself and not just my senior colleagues, but all of our colleagues, we really, really value your support and the way that you support us and the very kind things that you very often say to us and also to other people. It's unfadingly, when I meet prospective families, they will say it's how people who've got children here talk about the school that's made them want to come along and see it. So just to close, just a massive, massive thank you, and for your understanding of the fact that we can't always give black and white, hard and fast answers. Rest assured, we work really hard and really focused, ultimately around what's best for your children. So thank you very much indeed. Hi.